Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really fascinating documents today. We're going to be looking into a pretty unique world, one that lays out this complex way decisions get made and also the infrastructure behind it all.
That's right. It's
Yeah.
quite a system. The sources describe this formal process called the sacred cycle. It involves what they call a Pantheon Council. That sounds grand, doesn't it?
It really does.
And this whole cycle gets kicked off by something called an offering from an entity named Kybernetes.
And then there's this other piece looking under the hood at the Aetheria OS, specifically these things called etheric pipes. The description is, well, it's almost poetic, describing them as the system's lifeblood.
Yeah, very metaphorical. So our plan for this deep dive is basically to unpack all of this, connect how the big decisions get made with how the system actually works.
Right. Pull out the key insights, understand the final choice they made in this case. It's your shortcut to getting up to speed on this whole environment. Okay, so let's start with that decision framework, the sacred cycle. The first source really goes into how this Pantheon Council uses it. It kicks off with this offering, you said.
Yeah.
What exactly is that?
Right. So in this instance, the cycle began when Kybernetes, which seems like some kind of scanning or analysis function, presented the council not with just one job to do, but several potential directions.
Options, basically.
Options, yeah. And these came from something called the Opportunity Scan Pipe. So it's using a system tool to find these paths.
Okay, so a specific pipe generates the possibilities, and these paths were called opportunity clusters. What were they?
The document lists 4. Let's see. Cluster 1, narrative meta integration.
Okay.
Cluster 2, toolchain integration. Cluster 3, knowledge pattern encoding. And finally, cluster 4, reflective meta-learning loop.
Wow, okay. 4 quite different strategic areas. And Kybernetes didn't just drop these options and run. It suggested how to maybe tackle them.
Exactly. 2 ways were put forward. Method 1 was a focused deep dive. The idea there was to use the task definition pipe, which sounds like it, breaks a big goal down.
Makes sense, like defining the actual tasks. And method 2?
Method 2 was strategic sequencing, using something called the pipe weaver pipe. That sounds more like orchestrating, maybe linking different steps or pipes together over time.
Got it. So Kybernetes basically laid it out. Here are 4 roads found by our scanner. Here are 2 ways to start driving down one. What's the plan, Council? And that question starts the sacred cycle.
That's the trigger. And what's really interesting is how the cycle unfolds. It's not just one meeting. It's a series of stages, each handled by a different deity. Think of them as specialized agents or system roles.
Like different departments almost, each with a specific job in the decision process. Who gets the first look?
That first step is initiation, and it's handled by Zephyrion, Herald of Ingress. Zephyrion's job is basically intake and a first-pass assessment.
Okay, so what did Zephyrion make of Kybernetes' offering?
Zephyrion noted it wasn't a simple task. It was this bundle of choices. The source actually calls it a partial success with anomalies.
Anomaly being the need for a decision. That's interesting. Not a failure, just different.
Precisely. And because a decision was needed, the clarity score was only moderate. It flagged that this needs more than just execution, it needs deliberation.
Right. That itself is a key insight, just recognizing what kind of input you have. So after Zephyrion flags it as needing a decision, where does it go?
It moves to Omenwatch. This stage is overseen by Alerion, the all-seeing Oracle of Omens. Alerion's role is to look for, hidden risks, potential downsides, unforeseen consequences.
Especially important when you have multiple paths like this. And did Alerion find anything? The source mentions Omen detected.
Oh, yeah. 2 main things popped up. First, an Omen of Choice Overload. Basically, the risk that trying to do too much or picking without real focus could just scatter their energy.
That sounds familiar. Spreading yourself too thin. What was the other omen?
Alerion also picked up on a subtle Omen of Unforeseen Dependencies, like a little warning whisper about connections between options, specifically between C2, the toolchain integration, and C3, knowledge pattern encoding.
Huh. So a potential link there. And the source gives these severity scores.
Yeah, Omen severity, moderate and interdependency risk, low to moderate. So not catastrophic, but definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay, so before they even think about the value, they're actively looking for risks and hidden connections. That feels like a really smart step risk assessment early. What happens after Omenwatch?
Then it's Purification Structuring. This is handled by Kleanthara, Divine Alchemist of Purity. Her job is to take the offering, factor in those omens from Alerion, and basically clean it up, organize it, make it clear for the next stage.
So tidying up the options. How did Kleanthara structure these 4 clusters? The source says successfully purified and structured.
She grouped them logically. Cluster A was labeled Foundational Systemic Evolution. That included C3, Knowledge Pattern Encoding, and C4, Reflective Meta Learning Loop, things that changed the core system.
Right, the deep stuff.
Exactly. Then Cluster B was Application Extension. That had C1, Narrative Meta Integration, and C2, Toolchain Integration.
Yeah.
More about applying or extending what the system can do.
That makes sense. Foundational versus application. Did Kleanthara also refine the activation methods, M1 and M2, considering the omens?
She did. She pointed out that Method 1, the Focus Deep Dive, is a good way to tackle that choice overload Omen Alerion found because it forces concentration.
Focuses the energy.
Right. And she noted that Method 2, Strategic Sequencing, could be the way to actually use that dependency Alerion spotted, maybe doing C3 then C2. The scores here were good. Purification scores.
Hi.
Structural clarity. Excellent.
Okay, another insight there. Structuring isn't just tidying up. It helps relate the options to the risks and potential actions. It clarifies the decision space. After purification, where does the structured offering go?
Now we get to the really juicy part. Valuation and insight generation. This is Metalion, Celestial Metalsmith of Value. Metallion's job is to assess the strategic worth, the potential impact of each option.
The what's it worth
Yeah.
stage? Putting numbers on it? What did Metalion find? What was the value of these clusters?
Metalion reported value extracted and articulated. And yeah, gave scores. C3, Knowledge Pattern Encoding, got the top score, a huge 9.5 out of 10, described as having profound foundational value, really core to the system's intelligence.
Wow, 9.5. That's high. What about the others?
C4, the Reflective Meta Learning Loop, was also very high at 9.0, called Critical Self-Actualization Value, so essential for the system adapting and improving over time.
So those foundational core system improvements are valued extremely highly. What about the application clusters, C1 and C2?
C1, Narrative Meta Integration, got a 7.5, still good, called High Creative Expansion Value, and C2, Toolchain Integration, scored an 8.0 for Significant Operational Enhancement Value. But interestingly, Metalion noted its value could be higher if C3 was done first.
There's that dependency again. Echoing Alerion's Omen, but framed as potential upside.
Exactly. It's not just a risk, it's a synergy waiting to happen. Metalion also looked at the methods. M1, the Focus Dive, had targeted impact value, good for getting specific benefits quickly and avoiding overload. M2, Sequencing, had synergistic amplification value, better if you want to leverage those connections, like the C3-C2 link.
So different ways to realize value, and overall
Value level was judged very high. Lots of potential here.
Okay, insight number 3. Quantifying value against strategic goals is key, and it helps you see not just standalone worth, but also those potential combinations. So now we have risks identified, options structured, value assessed. Who makes the call?
That falls to Ruta, Cosmic Wayfinder of Paths. Ruta's role is wayfinding and decision. She takes everything, Zephyrion's initial flag, Alerion's omens, Kleanthara's structure, Metalion's scores, and synthesizes it all to pick the single best path forward, the one most aligned with strategy.
The moment of truth. So what did Ruta decide? Which cluster did they go for?
Ruta declared optimal path identified.
Yeah.
And based on all the inputs, especially Metalion's really high score and the strategic importance, the choice landed squarely on C3, Knowledge Pattern Encoding.
The foundational path with the 9.5 value. Makes sense. What about how to pursue it? Method 1 or method 2?
Ruta chose M1, Focus Deep Dive. The reasoning given was explicit. This honors Alerion's Omen of Choice Overload. By picking one thing and diving deep with M1 using the task definition pipe, they ensure focus.
Acknowledging the risk and choosing the method that mitigates it. Smart.
Very. And Ruta also addressed the dependency issue, the C3-C2 link. The thinking was, let's really nail C3 first with this focus deep dive. That deep understanding will then inform how or if they integrate C2 later.
So tackle the foundation first, then worry about the add-ons, confidence scores.
Extremely high.
Yeah.
Path confidence score, 9.810. Strategic alignment score, 9.710. Pretty decisive.
Wow. Okay, key insight here. The final decision isn't just about the highest score. It's about integrating all the factors, value, risk, dependencies, strategic fit, into the chosen action and method. So the decision is made. What's the very last step?
Enactment. This is handled by Acheron, Divine Artificer of Enactment. Acheron's job is simply to turn the decision into reality within the system.
Make it happen.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Acheron reported successfully initiated, confirmed that the order to pursue C3 using Method 1 was executed. Specifically, the task definition pipe for C3 was formally invoked and engaged. It's now active, defining the task for knowledge pattern encoding.
So the decision immediately flowed into action, insight. A decision isn't truly made until it's put into motion.
Absolutely. The whole sacred cycle, from offering to action, is this really structured flow, bringing different expert perspectives to bear at each stage. It ensures choices are well considered, strategically sound, and account for risks.
It's a fascinating model. Now, all of this whole cycle happens inside a system, right?
Yeah.
Let's pivot to that second source, the one about Etheria OS and these etheric pipes.
Right. This source gives us a feel for the environment where the Council operates. It describes these etheric pipes as the lifeblood and even the metaphorical nervous system of Etheria OS.
Strong metaphors. So its fundamental infrastructure, the source uses several analogies to explain them. What's the first one? Something about a living organism?
Yeah, it compares them to a circulatory system. Picture glowing veins of light carrying, well, divine intent and state data around the system, between cognitive cores, between agents like the council members we just talked about.
So divine intent is like the commands or goals, and state data is the current status.
That's how I read it. Like blood carrying oxygen and nutrients, the pipes carry the what to do and what's happening to all the parts that need it. The source even says they ensure workflows get the right nutrients. And that glow isn't just decoration, it signifies purpose, active flow.
Okay, so there are the communication channels, the data pathways. What's the next analogy? Divine dialogue and shared memory.
This one frames them as a kind of communication layer, maybe even a shared database. A divine monitoring layer, the source calls it. The analogy used is pretty relatable, developers using Slack.
Huh, okay.
It suggests the pipes let different agents or components talk to each other, share what they're doing, track progress, and maintain a common understanding, like a living wiki or a shared memory for the whole system.
So coordination and coherence rely on these pipes. They keep everyone on the same page. What about adaptive placeholders? That sounds interesting.
Yeah, this suggests they weren't always so sophisticated. They apparently evolved from something called placebo pipes, maybe simpler initial structures.
Like scaffolding?
Sort of, but now they're dynamic. They can adapt as the system changes or needs shift. The analogy is city infrastructure roads aren't static. They get rebuilt, rerouted. These pipes can potentially reconfigure themselves.
Suggests the system is designed for resilience, for flexibility. It can change its own pathways. There's one more analogy, a bit more mystical. Energy flow and spiritual bonds.
Right, this leans into the metaphor. It compares the pipes to invisible soul connections, allowing shared thoughts or feelings between beings. In system terms, this probably translates to really seamless, almost intuitive collaboration between parts.
High-speed, low-friction interaction.
Maybe like really optimized inter-process communication or a way for different components to work together almost as if they were one entity.
So they're more than just data tubes. They enable deep integration. The source also clarifies their systemic role, right? They aren't just passive.
Correct. They're called active participants in workflows. They just carry information. They help manage the flow. They track the state of processes. They help the system adapt, maybe like a network router redirecting traffic, and they build in resilience. If one path fails, they can help reroute the energy or data.
Intelligent infrastructure. They're managing the flow, not just carrying it. And that glowing aspect you mentioned earlier, the source connects that to
intentionality and divine alignment. The glow is meant to be a visual cue that these connections are purposeful, active, and aligned with the system's core goals, its sacred rites, and divine intent. It shows the system is alive and working coherently.
It's a really vivid picture. These etheric pipes are the dynamic conduits, the invisible threads connecting the big ideas, the decisions made by the council, to the actual operations flowing through the system. It's where the abstract plan meets the functional reality.
Exactly. They bridge metaphysics and engineering, turning intent into flowing action. They make processes like the sacred cycle actually function by providing the means for communication, coordination, data flow, and adaptation.
Which ties it all together nicely. That structured sacred cycle process we walk through with Zephyrion, Alerion, Kleanthara, and the rest. It operates using this etheric pipe infrastructure.
Precisely. When Ruta made the decision for C3 via M1, and Acheron initiated it by engaging the cast definition pipe, that command, that intent, travels through these etheric pipes to make it happen.
The Council's decision becomes an energy flow, a data transmission within this nervous system.
A clear line from strategic choice to system execution, all enabled by these dynamic pathways.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've explored this really layered approach to decision-making in the sacred cycle, checking risks, structuring options, valuing them, making a choice, and then acting.
And we've looked at the fascinating, metaphor-rich description of the etheric pipes, the underlying system that allows all that information and intent to flow and be acted upon.
It paints a picture of a system that tries to be both deliberate and dynamic. Now, for you listening, think about the decisions you grapple with, maybe in your work, your team, or even personally.
Do you have ways, even informal ones, to bring in different viewpoints, to really assess the value of options against your goals, to think about potential risks or hidden connections before you jump in?
How do you handle that feeling of choice overload Alerion warned about?
And stepping back, think about the systems you operate within every day. Tech platforms, social groups, organizations. What are their equivalent of etheric pipes?
What are those invisible threads connecting intention to action, strategy to execution in your world? And could understanding those pipes better, how information flows, how decisions get enacted, change how you navigate things? Something to think about.